All right, I would like to call this business meeting of the Portland Board of Public Education to order. It is Tuesday, December 20th, 2022. We are meeting in a blended format with some of us here at Casco Bay High School and others on Zoom. Mr. Superintendent, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair, Ms. Biliu. Ms. Bondo.
Présent.
Ms. Bryden.
Here.
Ms. Figdor.
Here.
Mr. Grant.
Here.
Dr. Opperman.
Here.
Ms. Russell Better.
Here.
Mr. Youssef.
Here.
Ms. Ellis.
Here.
Ms. Francisco. Mr. Hemond.
Here.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Here.
Ms. Santiago. And Chair Lentz.
Here. And we do have two board members that are traveling who are here by Zoom. And so now we'd like to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Portland Public Schools recognizes the original inhabitants of the land on which our city and schools stand. The Wolastoqiyik, or Maliseet, Micmac, Penobscot, and Passamaquoddy tribes, known collectively as the Wabanaki Confederacy, or People of the Dawnland. We are honored to have Wabanaki children among our students today, and as a district, we are committed to making the past, present, and future of Wabanaki peoples visible in our schools and classrooms. We're going to start this meeting with public comment, moving into public comment. As a reminder about public comment. So public comment is open to anything we're not voting on tonight. The board may not respond to comments, and please refrain from responding in the audience. No complaints or allegations will be allowed in public concerning any staff member or any person connected with the school district. To give public comment, please come forward to the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Please begin by introducing yourself with your name and address. We'll alternate batches from Zoom and in person, and then you'll have 3 minutes. I'll keep the time, and when you have reached 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I will raise a yellow folder indicating that you have 30 seconds remaining. At 3 minutes, I'll raise a red folder signifying the end of your time. If you get to the end of your allotted time and would like to request more time, you may do so. So if you'd like to speak, you can come up to the podium, and I'll also be having a look on Zoom as well. Beautiful. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Tim Cronin, and I work with the district and serve as the director of a program called Make It Happen. And I just wanted to share some of my own comments about some recent developments. And hello, and I hope you're well tonight. And so, in light of Superintendent Botana's recent resignation, I just wanted to make some comments. As a longtime employee, I can imagine that our recent payroll concerns and problems and woes, it's a big deal for a lot of staff members, and it's a difficult and disconcerting thing, and I can imagine how frustrating it is for many staff members. However, I also wanted to recognize that I think that the superintendent has really done a remarkable and extraordinary job with respect to his service, his leadership, and his oversight for the last 8 years that I've known him. And from the day he got here, with respect to the program I run, Make It Happen, he's been nothing but supportive. And basically, he's been instrumental in leveling the playing field. Over the last 3 years and change, imagine inheriting the situation that he had in overseeing probably the most trying last 3.5 years in recent human history and memory. And so I think it's really considerable that we came out of it and we're still intact. And I wanted to recognize that. Also, too, under his tenure, over the last 8 years and change, Make It Happen wound up growing a little bit before he came. He was starting off with 21 students at one school. And for those of you who aren't familiar in the crowd, Make It Happen is an academic support and college readiness program for multilingual students now in place at Portland's 3 high schools and 3 middle schools. But under his oversight, leadership, and service, the program grew from 21 kids at a middle school all the way to over 400 kids in 6 schools. And no way at all would it ever have happened without his support and, importantly, the support of the board. I think the superintendent and the board has been instrumental and critical in supporting the transition from our staff. We used to be supported and staffed by 100% AmeriCorps members, and the AmeriCorps program is wonderful. It gave us the leg up and and it helped us propel us to get to the point where now I can report that the district, under the superintendent's leadership, has basically staffed all high school positions 100% in permanent positions. That results in much more stable, consistent, and more effective support for our students in securing post-secondary ops that include full scholarships for a lot of kids. Our program, in my mind, levels the playing field with respect to cultural, language, and educational barriers. And without the superintendent behind us, no way would that have happened. And the program isn't all roses. Please don't get me wrong. We have our concerns and issues, but I'm happy to report that we've done a few things well and right. And so I just wanted to say, I wanted to thank you, Superintendent Botana, for your service and your leadership, and I wish you well. That's it.
Thank you.
Can you hear me okay? Sorry. Carrie Dowdy, Portland Education Association, 27 Fleetwood Street. I'd like to start by thanking the district and the board for continuing your work to write the payroll system. I also want to thank the board and the district for recently restating their commitment to paying all fees and payroll penalties due as a result of the audit in order to make their employees whole. I'd like to thank the board for the recently set up listening sessions at every school. I know you've just gotten started, but I want you all to know how thankful educators are across the district that you have made yourselves available for this kind of work. There's a lot going on at the moment, and I want to state publicly that I appreciate your efforts, and I'm working right alongside of you to try and rebuild trust. In that my new role allows me to get into many different schools, what I observe first and consistently wherever I am is that the teaching and learning going on all across the district is breathtaking and embedded with equitable practices. No matter where I go, a devotion to students and their families is clear. With that said, over the past 2 weeks, I have been made more aware of divides in the district, school to school. I have heard of some resentments and accusations over things like funding or who gets featured or who speaks up or what they say. In early October, when I had my first meeting with the former chair, I was pressed within 10 minutes for the PEA for me to endorse ballot question 5. I bring this up tonight only to share my response at the time. I declined, saying that as I was brand new in my position, my priority was to connect with members and grow trust within my own organization. That is still very much my truth. Superintendent Botana, I agree that your tenure has been far more than payroll problems. You brought with you a spotlight on equity and worked throughout your time in our schools to break down barriers in the district and to change practices so that all staff and all students would have equal access to teaching and learning. To loosely quote Sarah Lentz from the other day, you have challenged us all to focus on equity and have been a powerful advocate for this work. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan McCrae. I teach at Casco Bay High School, seniors English. and I've been in Casco Bay since the beginning, so over 17 years, and in the district over 19. I'm choked up. I'm here tonight because I'm very sad about what has unfolded with our superintendent. And I'm angry at this school board for accepting his resignation and for allowing us to get to this place. And I know I don't understand the inners and the behind the scenes, and I recognize that there's nothing more important than people receiving pay. And I believe sincerely that that's a fixable problem and that we have the best man in the job right now. I've been teaching for over 35 years at this point. And I've never worked for a superintendent like you, Javier. In fact, I used to think that superintendents were what you had to work around, that your principal kind of guarded you from central office. And I never felt like I belonged to a district. And in the last years, I've become a member of a district. And I can't imagine having been through this particular set of years without you. I have friends in all sorts of states and districts around the country who are teachers and educators. And as we know, schools everywhere are suffering. Districts everywhere are suffering. And there has been crisis and chaos and mayhem and disarray and division. And through all that time, Javier has guided us with a steadiness, an efficiency, a compassion, and an ability to hold the vision while getting things done. We lived through a pandemic. We've lived through a time of necessary racial unrest. And he's guided us through all of that. And I'm here tonight because I want us to remember that. What makes me sad is the thought that we will let him leave here with this being his lasting memory. Right? We have to remember what Javier Botana has done for us as a district and a city. We have to promise that we're never going to let this kind of mistake happen again. Because again, I don't know what it is, but I think it's a mistake. Something awful has unfolded. Let's not do this. And let's hold on to the Portland promise, to his vision. And let's remember it's his vision. He's lifted up every student, every child, every teacher. He saw us through an educator's of color report, through ensuring that every child is considered through the lens of equity. And I just hope that we will remember that. I'm so grateful for you, Javier. He's the first superintendent in my life who knows my name. And I think that is true of so many, right? You care deeply for all of us, and I'm forever grateful.
Nyla, just 1 second. If there's anyone on Zoom that would like to speak, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll work you in. Go ahead, Nyla.
My name is Nyla Wisa. I live at 106 Boothby Avenue in South Portland. I've worked for the district for 15 years. I'm currently the Make It Happen director for the middle schools. And I'm just going to read what I've written. Due to the pandemic, our young people have suffered the loss of at least 2 years of consistent schooling. The pandemic brought to the surface societal inequities, the murder of George Floyd, heightened vitriol and hate speech, labor shortages in every industry, and education across the nation is experiencing the squeeze in all departments: transportation, teachers, human resources, special education. We all feel the pressure. We are all living in extremely challenging times. The environment we are living in, working, teaching, and raising children is difficult for the vast majority of us. The children, our students, listen to how we speak to each other, treat each other, and how we handle complicated situations. We are a culture of blame, and we like the quick fix rather than the slower and more comprehensive change. It is unfortunate that the school committee listened to the small but loud and disgruntled voices in our district. The payroll nightmare is exactly that, a nightmare. A perfect storm of staff shortages, staff illness, system malfunctions, implementation issues, No one, least of all Javier, would say teachers do not deserve to be paid on time or do not deserve to be appreciated for their work. It is disingenuous and, quite frankly, opportunistic to use this payroll catastrophe to push him out. I want to express my appreciation to Javier for his courageous leadership and his determination to push us as a district to examine and extricate inequities and racism in our schools and curriculum in order to create a more just Portland with true opportunity for all. Education is progressive discovery in our own ignorance. That's a quote. Portland, we are still tasked with a personal responsibility as people who choose to be educators to understand our biases and our ignorance, to include perspectives from Black and Brown people in the school curriculum, to diversify the school teaching staff, and to make our schools a safer, healthier, and a more multicultural learning environment for the 51% of our students of color. ELL support for PATH's vocational program, access to AP classes to all students, Wabanaki curriculum, waiving fees for the SATs, creating new social worker positions, implementing a new restorative discipline approach, professional opportunities and growth within Portland Public Schools, and recognizing the value of our family engagement specialists at the multilingual office are just some of the things we have to thank you for. So you may have succeeded in removing Javier. However, for the sake of our children, we as a community are committed to seeing that equity remain at the center of our work. I have been proud to work for a district who has a leader willing to confront the systemic institutional inequalities in our schools, ultimately making schools a more academically rigorous place for our students. Thank you, Superintendent Botana, for your leadership. It has been an honor to serve with you.
Thank you.
My name is Maureen Clancy. I work for the district office. I worked there for 10 years as of last month. I am also angry and sad. Javier Botana is a bold, honest, intelligent, capable, and skilled leader. It has been the pleasure of my career to work with him and watch his steadfast focus on building a more just and equitable school system, even while dealing with the ongoing crises of the past 3 years. I believe in the Portland Promise and the goals he set to root out the inequities in our system and to make our school system work for each and every student. Javier is an amazing leader and role model. He taught me to always stand up, to listen and act, to be honest and humble, to take risks and responsibility for the good and the bad, and to keep moving forward. To stay focused on the goals at hand, and most importantly, stay focused on the students. He is student-centered. He is focused on making sure our students have role models, making sure our students are always at the center of our actions. I watch him work tirelessly for our staff and students. His legacy will be a more equitable school system, and I intend to honor him by remaining steadfast and making sure our equity goals are preserved, strengthened, and met. Our district is 38% language minority and 51% non-white. Javier knew this, lived this, was attentive to this, and challenged the system to better serve the students currently in our schools today. Thank you, Javier. You made a huge difference. You will be forever missed and remembered, and we will persevere.
I'm going to go to Cece Robinson on Zoom, and then you'll be next. Go ahead, Cece. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Mute. Thank you for the button. Thank you for that button. Am I visible? I'm
Yes,
still
we can hear you.
okay. And I'm guessing that my video probably just won't roll. I'm happy to turn it on if there's a way to do so.
I can't do that from my side, Cece. So if you want to just give us your audio, that will work. We
Okay.
can see a picture of you.
Great. I'll keep it short. Javier, I owe you a ton, and I'll address that in a letter to you personally. You're definitely also the best superintendent I've worked for in 25 years. I am an English teacher at Casco Bay High School. My name is Cece Robinson. I apologize for being home with my family this evening instead of being there in person. I thank all of our leaders who've given so much time to working to address this awful payroll crisis. But I'll address my remarks for this evening directly to the board members. It seems like at its heart, your decision to push for Javier's resignation or vote no confidence is a symbolic rather than logistical support of the hardworking teachers and staff who were not paid or not properly paid. This moment, with all its complexity, feels like a time for logistical support rather than going on record with symbolic support. We are living through a very difficult time with a set of challenges that have had a punishing impact on our collective problem solving. I see withdrawing our school board support and our union support for Javier as scapegoating. That is a move that seems most common during times that rip our societal fabric rather than times of committed collective support during crisis and challenge. I see this moment in the context of the big challenges of our time when collaboration has never been harder, nor has it ever been more important. I'd like to ask every board member to take on a long-term collaborative problem-solving approach to these challenges. And I thank you so much for your time. And I will also add, I'm ignorant of so many difficult considerations that everyone had to take under consideration. So I do thank you for that hard work and care that you did put in.
Thank you, Cece.
Dear members of the Portland School Board, I'm Ina Demers. I live on 4 Gorham Street, Wiscasset, Maine, and I'm an ELL teacher at East End. And I'm here to speak as an individual, representing myself as an employee of the Portland Public School and also a Portland Education Association member. I've been with the Portland Public School for 22 years. But I want to thank Superintendent Javier Botana for the 7 years of hard work as he moved Portland Public School into the 21st century on diversity, equity, inclusion, restorative justice, restorative practices, and everything else that have been approved by the school board. I also want to thank Emily Victor for standing by Superintendent Javier Botana as he didn't accept Superintendent Botana's resignation. Thank you, Emily. As I heard things that is going around these past few days, I have questions for the school board members. Who immediately called for an emergency meeting Friday evening to accept Superintendent Botana's resignation? And why is that? What's the rush? Are you in such a rush to get Superintendent Javier Botana departure that you couldn't wait 6 more months? If so, why are you so determined to make him leave sooner? Is this a behavior that school board members should have? Didn't you approve to diversify Portland Public School? And Superintendent Botana is actually Cuban. What is the motivation of all this that will now sit on your shoulders? And how will this fix the payroll problems? And what bigger problems have you all created now? This presents problems for our students and their families who speak many different languages and who identify with him beautifully because he is our symbolic leader who gives us hope. So why is it that you all, except Emily Victor, rushed into accepting his removal? What was your motivation behind all this? I know that the diversity, equity, and inclusion work may not sit well with all people. You all approved the implementation of restorative practices. So why couldn't you use that yourself? You expected educators to implement restorative practices in educating our students and amongst ourselves. So please implement that among yourselves. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ina. I'm going to go to Leo on Zoom. Leo, are you there?
Hi, yes. Leo Hilton, 3 Salem Street, Portland. I'm a Portland High School graduate. I'm an apprentice electrician with IBEW 567, and I'm a member of the Maine Democratic Socialists of America. And I'm calling into the meeting this evening to speak in solidarity with and in support of the teachers, ed techs, and substitute teachers and hourly staff at all of our Portland schools, and to thank the board for helping to figure out this solution. I urge the board to follow through with the promises that they've made to make sure that all of the workers in our schools are made whole from this problem with the payroll system. And I'm hoping that this experience will act as a wake-up call and a reminder. And I hope that the superintendent's resignation will not simply be a sacrifice that wipes clean the slate and the spirit looking forward from this moment. And instead, this could be a point at which we can start to put workers first and build trust with between the department and the workers in all of our schools. I think it's a shame that things had to get so bad and blow up in this way. And frankly, if it hadn't been for the way that this department treats its workers and the unions that represent them, if it hadn't been for all the delays in negotiation, I'm not sure that this crisis would be as shattering as it has been in the last month. So going forward, I'd urge the school board to adopt a concessionary position when it comes to negotiating with the unions that represent all of the workers in their schools. Make sure that we give in to the demands that the people who are providing for our students are requiring to make their jobs well compensated and feasible and supported enough for them to do their jobs well. Because if we're truly committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, which I think are excellent and the most important goals that we should be striving for, that starts with making sure that the worst paid and worst compensated workers at our schools get a fair shake and are made whole in this crisis and going forward through fair contract negotiations. So thank you very much for your hard work, and good evening.
Thank you, Leo.
Evening. My name is Caroline Clavel. I live at 11 Hanson Street in Portland, and I'm an ESOL teacher at East End Community School, and a union member, and I'm also a parent of an 11th grader here at Casco Bay. I've been a parent in the district for quite a while. I have an 18-year-old. And I'm here to express my sadness about losing Batana. Clearly, the payroll breakdown was a bad problem, especially for the ed techs who are not being paid fairly and the subs who are not being paid at all. But some of us, at least I, do not agree that Botana is really to blame for this. I don't know for sure who's to blame because I'm not at that level. But just based on things that I think and know, it sounded like there were a lot of factors that came into this problem. A pandemic, staff leaving, new staff trying to understand a possibly antiquated system that no one realized was a problem until the people who could work it left. I'm guessing. At this point, the problem grew very quickly and it snowballed as more and more of us realized that people were not actually getting paid quickly and some not at all. Many of us, by the way, were getting paid, but other things were coming to light that weren't right with retirement funds or our time off accounting, things like that. It is a big problem. And I'm guessing that if we look around the country right now, that there are many other school districts and businesses coming out of the pandemic in similar predicaments. So what we found with the payroll was angering and frustrating. And a lot of teachers, a lot of us had a lot of things to say about it. And it kind of grew. But one of the issues with the culture of our district, like many others, is that it's kind of scary to bring things up. This is not Botana's fault. I would guess it's rooted in the kind of structures that there are in school districts going way back. So we went through the union, and then last week you all came to our schools to listen to us. And of course, there are issues, there are things that teachers want to talk about and things we want to change and things that could get better. But I would not have said a word about anything if it had occurred to me that my words might somehow lead to Botana stepping down. The question I have now is, how do we take care of this payroll mess? Do we scapegoat the superintendent who has shown a light on inequity and has engaged us all in the messy work of becoming a more equitable district? Do we scapegoat the superintendent who brought us through the pandemic over payroll? Who will pick up where he left off? Who can actually do a better job? At the Expeditionary Learning Schools, they talk about everyone being part of a crew. The idea is that we are all in this together, and really we need to shoulder it together. We can't do this if we are afraid to speak out. We can't do this in a culture that looks for scapegoats. We all need to have a voice. We need to be able to ask questions and sometimes to make mistakes. And that's what I have to say.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Betsy Baskimeshi. I live in Kennebunk, Maine. I work for the Multilingual and Multicultural Department as a family and community engagement specialist for our Spanish speakers. I stand before you here with a very heavy heart. I am deeply saddened by the board's decision to accept Superintendent Botana's resignation. Superintendent Botana and I started here at the same time. Over the past 6 years, Superintendent Botana has demonstrated to be a courageous, bold, just, and strong leader for our district. I have seen the benefits and the impact that his equity focus has had on the community that I serve. He is student and family centered. He opened up paths for our L students. He facilitated parent groups in Spanish. Imagine being able to come to a school event and not need an interpreter and communicate directly with the superintendent. The empowerment, the value those families got from those engagements with Superintendent Botana was incredible. He reworked suspension policies that have been disproportionately affecting students of color and has been working on increasing staff diversity. He has given voice to communities that have always been marginalized. Superintendent Botana has had the courage to take on the systemic racism that is so firmly rooted in our educational systems. I am deeply disappointed in this board for having succumbed to the public pressure and making superintendent the scapegoat. I want to publicly acknowledge that the superintendent's resignation has only strengthened my resolve to continue his equity work. Thank you, Superintendent Botana, for your tireless work and for seeing and hearing our communities. De corazón, te agradezco todo tu trabajo.
Thank you, Betsy.
Hi, my name is Priscilla Bettencourt. I have only been here for 2 years, and during this time, I have witnessed a strong leadership from Javier. I am the homeless liaison for the district, and we support around 415 students. Because of the work and advocacy of Javier and some superintendents from neighboring schools districts, the state decided to award us a $1.6 million grant to support our homeless and newcomer students. With this grant, we will be able to provide access to transportation and better living conditions, such as having access to laundry, access to case managers, in school and after school supports for the next 2 years. Javier has also been very supportive on our culturally appropriate food pantry at central office because he understands the importance of having culturally relevant items for our multilingual families to cook. Working at central office has also allowed me to see a different side of a superintendent. He volunteers for walking school bus. He helps with transportation by driving around the neighborhood and picking up kids to come to school whenever needed. And he helps families fill out lunch forms at the back to school fair. And I have witnessed all that. I live in Lyman and I drive 40 minutes to work every day. I am the only social worker who speaks Portuguese in Maine, and I chose Portland because I trust on the work of the district. I just wanted to finish up by saying that all this extra work that you do has done a tremendous impact for our families experiencing homeless. It has been a pleasure to work for a district with a leader that focuses so much on equity and the well-being of all the students and families. So thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair and honored board, my name is Kevin Whittemore. I have been with the Portland Public School District for 32 years. I've served as the Assistant Director of Transportation Director, and I am now acting as the mentor and support for the current Transportation Director. I am here tonight to say unequivocally that the support our department has received from Superintendent Botana is unparalleled. I have worked directly under the supervision of 7 superintendents, and I have never had a superintendent that was as accessible as he is. He's never canceled a meeting. He answers my emails. He answers my text messages. And you would think that's just common courtesy, but it has not always been practice. And we've had some great, not to say, we've had some great superintendents. But his support has allowed us as a department to realign and to improve what we can offer to drivers in such a way that we've been able to be more competitive in the marketplace. He has gone out and picked up students when we were down drivers and didn't have enough buses, students that couldn't get, especially in the East End school where there's a real need. I had 2 different employees that were ready to quit because they were new hires and had not gotten a check that he personally wrote checks to. That kind of support deserves more from you guys. It deserves more. It deserves a whole lot more. I'm actually kind of happy for Javier because you've given him a way out from under a burden, a crazy, incredible burden that he did not bring on. I've worked with the payroll department for years, long before he was here. And we've been putting Band-Aids on that system because we as a department were unwilling to get it fixed. The transportation department has been promised for 36 years a garage, but the school committee has never been willing to step up and to fix that problem. So we still put Band-Aids on it. We as a school district are really good about putting Band-Aids on things. And my concern is that what's going to happen right now is that he will become a scapegoat and that nothing will change. It's a sad day for Portland Public Schools. Javier, you will be missed.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Josephine Bizimana. I live on 15 Cliff Ave, Old Orchard Beach. I'm a parent and employee of Portland Public Schools for 11 years, to Multilingual and Multicultural Center. And I work with families who speak French, Kirundi, Kinyarwanda, and Swahili. So I'm standing here before you to express how deeply disappointed I am in your decision to push Javier Botana to resign from his role as a superintendent of Portland Public Schools. It is true that there is a problem in payment system for teachers, but also for other district employees. I wonder if you consulted with all concerned before making such a hasty decision. Will his resignation be used to find a solution? I doubt it, because the problem is not Javier's poor leadership, but a system he inherited from his predecessors. Your decision confirms what the French adage say, "Que veut noyer son chien l'accuse de rage." So I'm going to translate this in English. He who wants to drown his dog accuses him of rabies. Since last week, the name of Javier Botana is associated with incompetence, indifference, and trustworthiness. I would like to share with you, and especially to people who have just met him in a negative way, the superintendent I know. Javier is a kind, caring man whose only concern is to see all students, staff, and Portland Public Schools community served fairly. This has been a remarkable, he has been remarkable, especially during the time of COVID-19 pandemic, which exposed the complex problem due to racial system that engulfs our society. He has risen to the occasion by creating a committee to address the demands of our Portland public school community. Since he has been the superintendent of Portland Public Schools, multilingual students have educators in their schools who look like them, speak their languages, and can serve as role models. Thanks to him, multilingual parents with degrees from universities in their countries can now work in Portland Public Schools. Mr. Botana, I cannot list here the good changes you have made to Portland Public Schools, but accept this. You have been one of the great rare superintendents Portland Public School has ever known. Thank you for your services.
Hi, my name is Shamso Farah from Multilingual Multicultural Center. I live also Portland, Maine. I have been working in district over 20 years for different positions. I'm also a mother for 5 graduates Portland Public Schools. I'm speaking on behalf of my community, the Somali community. I have heard that my community is talking about the issue that is going on at this moment at Portland Public School District. The buyback community, including the Somali speakers, had no voice in or awareness of the actions being taken to charge Mr. Botana of any wrongdoing related to payroll issues. We support our teachers getting paid in timely manner and understanding the complexity of this issue, and that Mr. Botana also wants the teachers and all staff to be paid on time. We would like to clarify that our Somali families are not part of BTOs in the district. Even when we tried to be, we were not included. Our voices were not included in BTO's letter to the school board. We love and appreciate Mr. Botana as our leader and superintendent. We trust him to do the right things. We are shocked to learn that there are BTOs calling for Javier Botana to leave or step down. Moreover, we are telling you by expressing our voices to say Javier is not solely responsible for the misfortunate events with the payroll, and that shouldn't be leaving without finishing his term. We have seen that he listens to everyone, young and old. When you are in leadership position, no one is perfect, but he is a leader who has tried to make difference in the development of all students, and particularly students of different cultures. He created an environment of collaboration among students, families, staff, and district. His work must be continued, and we hope that in the future, the school board will seek out feedback from all families in the district, not just few. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jake McNally. I'm a math teacher at Casco Bay High School and a Portland resident, and for 15 years, a parent of students in the Portland Public Schools. And I am here to just express my appreciation for Superintendent Botana. I deeply appreciate that you took this on, that 6.5 years ago, you came here to this place to take on a job where you're responsible for hundreds of teachers, thousands of students, and tens of thousands of taxpayers. It's an incredibly complex undertaking, and I so deeply appreciate that you dove in and took it on wholeheartedly. And specifically, I remember countless times where the city was facing very difficult issues, and there were very tough times for our students, and you were their champion. You absolutely stood up for equity and inclusion and for every single student in this district. And I just want to let you know that there are many times around the dinner table where someone would pull up an email from Javier Botana and read a paragraph and say, wow, he just nailed it. He got that exactly right. So for 6.5 years, I appreciate you holding the vision that is my vision for Portland Public Schools, and for moving us forward, and for leading this district. And I deeply, deeply appreciate everything you've done for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Jake.
I'm Tom DeYoung, Ed Tech and Functional Life Skills at Deering High School. I hadn't planned on speaking this evening, but I agree with a great many of the speakers about the contributions Superintendent Botana has made. However, at various costs, as an Ed Tech and Functional Life Skills, I have to say I haven't, in my 15 years here, I came to Portland from a district south of here after working there 5.5 years, I came here for the pay and the diversity, and love the diversity and the multicultural aspects of Portland. Yet, I believe many of the hirings to support the multicultural programs of the district have come at an expense and on the backs of special ed, functional life skills, some of the neediest students of the district. In my 15 years, I haven't felt more disillusioned and frankly indifferent as to whether Superintendent Batana stays or leaves. I'm indifferent to that, unfortunately. But I believe that many of the positions that have needed to be filled in many areas in special education have been put off because of filling positions in multicultural programs throughout the district. Yes, there's been incredible progress in the years you've been here, but I haven't seen it in our program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Beverly Stevens. I'm a principal here at Portland Public Schools, and I'm also a parent. I'm two graduates and a current student here in the district. The statement we want to make is from the PAA, or the Portland Administrators Association. We're here to share this statement with you, and everybody had a hand in it. We just want to say we all want a functioning payroll system, all of us. We know the district has many staff working to fix this payroll to the point where it's getting ready to hand over. And we are rest assured that we have there is a plan to restore this trust in the system. We feel that and we know that. We appreciate Javier and all the district leaders in their transparency and with employees and taking responsibility with humility. Really appreciate that. We see you.
Ben Donaldson, the principal at Moore Middle School. And through these challenges, we want to assure you that our schools continue to function as stable and supportive places for our students to learn. We are supporting all of our students pre-K through adult education, and we're supporting each other as colleagues. We remain committed to knowing, supporting, and challenging every student that we're working with. That's our commitment to you.
Caitlin LeClaire, principal of King Middle School, also parent of Portland Public Schools graduate. At this moment, school leaders and school directors are surprised, concerned, and uneasy about Javier's resignation. This move leaves an incredible amount of work for our people to shoulder and for this organization to endure. That said, we are steadfast in meeting the Portland Promise. The strategic work is critical to our community, and our equity work is central to all of our priorities.
Jake Giesman, assistant principal at Deering High School. At this moment, we need a plan from the board to transition leadership in order to ensure ongoing stability and the continuation of our work with students and our community. There is already a destabilizing effect with this move, and we wonder what will be the additional impact of internal leaders being reassigned or of supporting an interim superintendent through June.
As I said before, these statements represent all of PAA. We've all crafted it together. We do want the board to know that our membership is standing ready to support and a prioritized plan to carry us through the rest of the school year. We are also very much in support of the central office staff who have worked tirelessly to support our schools through the fall, through all the staffing issues, and now with the payroll. We're really grateful for all your work. Thank you. And I just want to say personally, Javier, when I met you, I had been administrator in schools for maybe 18 years at that point, and you made me a better school leader. Thank you.
Hi, Derek Pearson, 9 South Street. I'm going to continue the pile on a bit. And I just can't help but thinking when I hear all the inspirational words before me, but if this had happened a week ago, would what have happened last Friday happen? I come to you tonight as a Portland resident of 30 years, a parent of 2 PPS alums, and the principal of Casco Bay. I'm so proud of our city and our schools. But right now, like others here, I'm angered and saddened and ashamed by the superintendent's resignation and all that led up to it. The payroll mistakes and omissions that remain must be urgently addressed, and my sense is all involved share that sense of urgency. The good news is that these are problems that are fixable as they are painful. The bad news from my vantage point is that Portland's just chased out of town the most powerful, positive, moral, and impactful superintendent we've had in my 18 years here. And right as we're trying to launch a search to attract a great new superintendent. This is the superintendent who not only created the Portland Promise, but inspired us to pursue it, who led us deftly and ethically through the gazillion new challenges of pandemic learning, who assembled the most diverse and effective central office team that we've ever had, who consistently centered the needs of BIPOC students and BIPOC staff, who pushed us to have a curriculum that better reflects our community's demographics, who galvanized our community to consistently support the school budgets we needed, including massive renovations at our elementary schools, who was twice named Superintendent of the Year by his peers because no one in the state had a bigger job and did it with as much skill and integrity. And this is the superintendent who fulfilled his promise to our city by staying at least 5 years, the first superintendent to do so in a generation, and then graciously created a succession timeline that sets us up for success. Was Javier flawed? Yes, we all are. But I would suggest that the best way for our schools to move forward now, to repair the harm done, is to try to lead and act as Javier had at his best. That means recommitting to the Portland Promise. That means putting education's most intractable and most important work at the center. Equitable opportunities and outcomes for all of our students, especially those who have been traditionally disadvantaged and marginalized. That means valuing and supporting the people of Portland Public Schools, all the people, from food service workers to central office administrators who help this district navigate the most challenging of times so honorably. That means continuing to make sure that we do all that we can to recruit and retain great BIPOC staff and leaders. That means continuing to upgrade how we teach and what we teach so that it catalyzes students to do excellent, important work so that they leave us empowered and prepared to tackle the world's knottiest challenges from climate change to racial justice. That means we attend to not only our students' academic needs, but their social emotional ones as well, so that we graduate not just great scholars, but great humans. And moving forward, it is equally important that we be as attentive to how we interact with one another, how we lead, as to where we are going. And once again, we would be wise to uphold Javier's true legacy as a leader. That means tackling complex issues with care and deliberation, as Javier often did, consulting with others who may know more, avoiding rash decisions, listening to those beyond the ones who are loudest or powerful. That means communicating cogently and with respect for the power of your words and for your audience, confronting crucial issues directly, resisting the temptation to blame others or make excuses or deflect or deny. It means apologizing when you screw up, because we will screw up again, and then getting to work on fixing the problem and making amends. And that means making decisions as Javier did, centered on a bedrock belief in the transformative power of an excellent education, as well as love for each and every student and their gorgeous potential. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Javier.
Thank you.
I'm happy to be here tonight to speak to the legacy of Javier Botana.
Would you mind starting with your name and address?
Sure. My name is Stephanie Trice Gill, 100 Dorset Street, Portland, Maine. and I am graduate of Hall School, now the Rose School, in the 70s. I went to Lincoln and Deering in the 80s. So, and my son is in the first cohort of the Spanish immersion program that started back 10 years, that when it started, I don't remember when that was, it was 5. But he's now in the class, the graduating class of 8th grade, where him and all his classmates speak fluent Spanish. And it's quite a gift to the Portland district. These 50 years, I've been observing the Portland Public Schools, and I've seen superintendents come and go. And that's why I feel like I can say with some authority that Javier Botana has done more for the Portland Public School District than any other superintendent in the history of the past 50 years. I can't speak to before that. But he has inspired former students to get back and involved. He's inspired current students to go on and make their future. He's inspired parents to find a way to struggle, to get involved in their students' education. And as much as other superintendents and maybe future superintendents might do, no one, as other speakers have said, had the accessibility, the integrity, and the depth of caring and the commitment to diversity and inclusion, the commitment to really living what he speaks and walking the talk and challenging all of his colleagues to do that. I worked in the previous administrations, several of the previous administrations as school health coordinator and also as a teacher. And I can't say there was ever a superintendent who really seemed to have both his boots on the ground, who really, really loved this district and who gave a full commitment to see things through. If you look at the duration of previous superintendents, they came and went very quickly. And that meant no matter what wonderful ideas they had, they never saw them through. So I think that in addition to rethinking the school board's actions, I also would say that I currently am a business owner. I run a recruiting company with a focus on diversity recruiting. And I would say that one of the things that's happening right now in the workforce is it's going to be very hard under this environment and with these attitudes to be able to recruit any comparable talent to this position. And so I'd say the one thing that needs to be done is to really, as all the previous speakers said, to honor Javier's legacy. But I also asked the committee to think about, to rethink and to ask, is there a way that he could be won back? If not, and I can understand if not, I would say then really it means honoring his legacy and holding his role in the Portland Public School District dear to our hearts and making that known to others. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Carlos Gomez. I am an educator and a parent here and a resident of Portland. I wear 2 hats, multiple hats, but right now as Director of Language Development. I'd like to say that 5-6 years ago now, when I joined this team, I have never been a part of a smarter, more caring, and more committed group of leaders in my 25 years as an educator. And as flawed as we are, we're doing our collective best at all times and in these hard times. I joined this team because of the vision to open as many doors as possible for as many students as possible. And I joined this team because of the vision and leadership of Javier Botana, our assistant superintendents, and my colleagues at central office, the amazing leaders that we have in our schools. the amazing teachers that I taught side by side with for 20 plus years here in Portland. And we've been asked to do the impossible in ridiculous times. We absolutely, as an organization, need to make sure that our educators and all of our staff are accurately and dependably compensated. And I truly believe that we will get through this together, but we have to do this together. The other hat that I wear as a parent, I've taught and coached many of you and some of your children. You have taught and coached my children. It's been the greatest honor, and I'm truly grateful for that opportunity to share that in this community. Portland has been our home for over 20 years, and we are looking around, we are each other's community. Let's remember that. Let's remember to treat each other with the respect, the kindness, the humility, and the humanity that each and every one of us deserves, especially now in this moment of crisis. It's what we ask our children to do. We need to model that for them and be together on this. And thank Javier Botana for the most powerful work that I've been involved in my profession as an educator. Thank you, Javier.
Thank you. If there is anyone on Zoom that would like to speak, please raise your hand. You can come up to the mic.
My name is Victoria Capone Enriquez. I live. No.
Riverton.
I live in the Riverton neighborhood. I'm in 7th grade at Moore Middle School, and I used to go to Lyseth. My sister's in 5th grade at Lyseth Elementary, and my father's name is Julio Enriquez. He works as an ed tech in the Breathe program at Moore, and he is not here tonight to defend the superintendent. And I would now like to yield my time to my mom.
I told her it's chores of democracy, just like you walk the dog and you load the dishwasher, honey. You have to come tonight. All right, she yielded her time. He's not here to defend the superintendent tonight. I think that's because partly he doesn't see Javier as important enough to defend. He wasn't here 2 weeks ago to stand with the white union members because it was only white union members here 2 weeks ago. I think that's partly because he must not see the white union members as people important enough to stand with. But most of all, my papi is not here tonight because he's tired. God, he's tired. He has long COVID. And when my family lost our housing to his long COVID and the Airbnb, we had to move to my Nona's house, that's grandma in Italian, to her in-law apartment, which is really small. And when it was time to go back to school, the human resources employee, let's say his name, Richard Moore, told my dad things that were very disrespectful. He laughed at him. He made him seem like my dad was pretending to be sick. He wanted my dad to predict how he would feel in a few months from now. My dad grew up poor in a poor country. My dad and my abuela started working as children. What do you know about that? I don't know about it. Lisa doesn't know about it. What do you know about working as a child for nothing? So your family doesn't starve or die in a war. You have family that might know something about that. Oh, Lord have mercy. To be told he was trying to avoid work or be lazy is the second worst way to treat my dad.
To try to make my dad feel like a fool is the number one way to insult my dad. My mom is a fighter. She is annoying how hard and well she can fight. She knows the laws, the rich people, the politicians, the unions, and she has friends in high and medium and low places. When my dad and my mom told Javier and Adam Burke and Yusef and Emily Figdor about his problem, they did not fix the problem. My dad was reduced to half-time and had to pay a lot to keep his health care. My family could not afford that, so he went back to work full-time before his health was good, against his brain doctor's advice. My dad was interviewed for the school staff of color report, and he still faces racism every day at work. He wants real change, not fake stuff for the guilty white people or the newspaper. Thank you for listening. I have my own testimony, but I'd like to begin now with my 3 minutes.
We have about 2 minutes left of your combined time. Does that feel like enough?
Well, you could have given her another minute, so I think I should have 3 minutes.
Okay.
Julio's not here tonight. We'd have 9 as a family if he was. Can you not start my time until I'm ready?
Yep.
Thank you. That's a breath of fresh air. Not a courtesy that Ethan Strimling or Kate Snyder would ever extend me. All right. My name is Elizabeth Capone Newton, and I live at 88 Tucker Ave. Sorry. Oh, now I'm being like a DJ. There's 2 songs playing at the same time. All right. This song is called The Promise. Like the Portland Promise. I came here tonight to talk about collective power and collective responsibility. A lot of people have covered some of the points that I wanted to make. When I think storytelling is a good way to connect with people. So there's so much to say, but you know, I'm willing to email you guys. You guys know that. So I work at the University of Southern Maine. I just checked my email. I have an email from my boss. That'll probably be hard to deal with, but I'm an MEA member. Hopefully it'll go fine. You know, I spend a lot of my unpaid time advocating for our schools to be better. So at the University of Southern Maine, I work for the math department. 2 brilliant faculty there. We were talking the other day about teachers needing to make mistakes in front of the classroom to normalize what it is to make mistakes. So I'm going to model that because we're supposed to show and not tell, right? I'm not an educator by training, but I've played the role. And so I'm going to show and not tell. When I was 2 years or 3 years out of college, I worked for Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City. I was a research coordinator and for a study about people who have heart attacks or near heart attacks and the role of depression. Because depression, if people have depression, they're more likely to die, even if they have the same medical history as someone else. So I worked for people who are trying to understand why that's the case and do something about it. And I worked with foreign doctors who, you know, are treated poorly by US policy and they sort of end up in these research jobs, you know. And the foreign doctor I was working with was a really great guy. Sorry, foreign doctor is a term people use in research. It's obviously stupid. This is a person from the Philippines. He was excellent, lovely person. For whatever reason, the boss wanted to fire him. Well, that was going to cause him to get sent back to the Philippines. So
15 seconds, Elizabeth.
Thank you. I'm going to ask for 1 more minute. In addition to the 15 seconds. So the supervisor, Puerto Rican woman, nice woman, social worker, she came to me, she said, Elizabeth, can you share your credentials with Anthony which is obviously against policy. And, you know, I probably should have said no, thank you. But I was like, sure. So every morning when Anthony needed to do the job, he was doing his job under my name. I happened to be good at his job. I actually did his job well. I was like the best screener for acute coronary syndrome, even though I had no medical training, because I worked with the best cardiologist every day. And so I learned every time they said something, I learned. All right. So Ed Bradley, this is public knowledge, died at Mount Sinai Hospital. Like it happens when famous people are in a hospital, they do a review. Who entered the record? Elizabeth Cone Newton entered the record. So the chief medical officer of the hospital came to sit down with me and say, show me, 30 more seconds, please. I just want to finish the story. I'll be short. Show me what you did. This is for Javier. All right. Show me what you did. Why did you enter this record? So I did it. You know, I showed him, this is how I do my job. Okay, no problem. Right. What did my mentor say? She said, Elizabeth, stay in your position. When you have a problem, don't take on other people's problems, right? If you stay in your position and you send that problem right back up the hill to where it belongs, then you won't find yourself in a position where people are accusing you of doing something wrong when actually you had the best intentions. So that's what we have to ask ourselves. Why didn't we have the courage to say no? Why didn't we have the courage to send the problem right back up where it belongs, which is to the city council to find the money? Because there's no reason that functional life skills and the multilingual work that you do should not coexist well. And the fact that people have been pitted against each other is the biggest mistake of all. Aside from letting Kate Snyder, the person who was chair of the school committee.
I'm happy to continue this conversation.
No problem.
But I really
it's not a conversation. It's my testimony. So let the blame be where it's due. If you cover for other people, you're going to take the fall. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's anybody else in the room that would like to speak, there is one more Zoom hand raised. So Kate, please come off mute.
Good evening. My name is Kate O'Brien. I'm a parent of 2 Portland Public School students and wanted to express gratitude for Superintendent Botana's leadership through incredibly challenging and unprecedented times. I just didn't want the moment and the things that have happened over the last several weeks and months to overshadow extraordinary visionary leadership, and wanted to make sure it was on the record. So Javier, thank you for everything that you've done.
Thank you, Kate. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment? Okay, oh, come on.
Masuda Habibzai, working at the Multilingual Central Office, also parent of 3 students in Portland Public School. My address is 117 Montrose Avenue, Portland. Also a teacher for 23 years, working around Portland, and a resident. I'm a board member of Afghan community. Thank you for all you did for the community, for whole Portland school. You're a good leader, a good team player, and we love you. Everybody at the community love you. And no matter how, we wish you a good luck, and we hope you have a wonderful life after. And we appreciate your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you.
The group of moms who don't speak.
Yep.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Sadia Ali. And by the way, I was first 15 years ago, I was a student in Portland Public School, and you made it easy for me to be a teacher right now. And I work at Priscilla Scott. These are all parents of Somali parents, and they just want to say to you, they support you. They are right 100% behind you. And what else you
أنا في مكان واحد وأركن واحد بعد بس إنه هاي نحبرش نصيناي هاي هذي واحد بركنين إنه بعرف ندك والد وحشة يعني ملاص أنا ما نكورك ما نرالين كمان.
Okay, we are not aware of it, what's going on, and we never heard anything, and we support 100% with you, and you are giving all our students, children's, all the needs they did it. Thank you very much, and we support you. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room or online that would like to speak? Okay, seeing no hands here in the room or online, I'm going to close public comment. Thank you all for being here and for all of your words. I think it really amplifies this concept that I've been thinking about for the last few weeks, which is both and. That we can both uphold the legacy of Superintendent Botana's work and his deep commitment to equity and the work of this district. And it can be time, and we agree that it is time for him to move on. I know that it is incredibly hard and complex, and it has been incredibly hard and complex as a board to navigate this as well. Let's take a breath. I need a breath. If anyone else needs a breath. Last night, I gave the State of the Schools address to the City Council, and my comments focused on the connection between the state of our students, the state of our systems, and the state of our staff to the overall state of our schools, and that we have real strengths and challenges in each of those areas. I also spoke about the necessary collaboration between the city and the school district, and by working together, we become greater than any one piece. Over the course of the last few weeks, I've been in several conversations with the mayor, and their finance team is providing resources now like staff time, insight, and information to support our ongoing payroll issues. I also show deep appreciation of the work of our superintendent and his steadfast commitment to continue to center equity in light of his resignation last Friday. I recognize that people are feeling sadness and loss. I'm hopeful that we can get to the place as a community where we both hold up his work and understand his resignation is the best step for our district. Please know the board is still 100% committed to centering equity in this district and is determined to move Superintendent Botana's great work forward, including the Portland Promise. The board, through our Public Affairs Committee, has been conducting listening tours across the district to both hear concerns and comments in regards to the resignation of the superintendent, as well as other district issues. We're hoping to visit each school and several community groups and spaces by mid-January. If you have not spoken to the board yet and you would like to, please let us know. We want to sit with you and talk with you. The board is also currently working on identifying an interim superintendent, and I'm personally in touch with the Alma Advisory Group, the hiring firm we've selected to plan the initial stages of the search, which include deep community involvement through gatherings, focus groups, and other input. Since the last meeting, there have been a few updates to our board committees. Oh, I'm hearing. Great. So I just wanted to make sure everybody could hear. Since our last meeting, there's been a few updates to our board committees, and I would like to share those. So on our Curriculum and Policy Committee, with staff leads Assistant Superintendents Nally and Townsend, our chair is Board Member Russell Better. Board members Bondo, Opperman, and Billiou are the board members on that committee. Finance, Personnel, and Operations with staff lead Javier Botana. The chair is Board Member Bryden, and we have a vice chair of Board Member Opperman. The board members on that committee are Figdor and Grant. Public Affairs Committee with staff lead Grace Venezuela. The chair remains Board Member Bondo, and board members Russell Better, Lentz, and Youssef are on the committee. For the Superintendent Search Committee, Board Member Figdor has stepped down as co-chair of that committee. I'm working on a replacement co-chair, and I'm also investing in options to add more teacher and ed tech voices to that process. I would like to see if there's any other announcements from any board members, and then we'll turn it over to Superintendent Botana for his remarks. Yeah, Board Member Grant.
Thank you, Chair. As my colleagues know, many of the public know, I serve as a labor and employment lawyer in my day job, including I've been able to do some work for the Maine Education Association. I've been able to continue to serve in this role to serve my community on the board because we've had some internal firewalls, including that I would not serve on the bargaining team for the board and that I would be firewalled within MEA from performing any work related to the Portland schools. I think anyone listening could have that confirmed from Ms. Dowdy and Chair Lentz. That arrangement's continued through the most recent turmoil we've been going through. I bring this up because I want to be forthcoming about some changes in my professional life. So starting in January, I will be moving over to be the general counsel for the MEA. I want to assure everyone here and everyone listening that that won't change my relationship with the board as I just described and have been living for the last 6 months. So just to reiterate, I won't serve on the bargaining committee and I will be firewalled internally within MEA from matters related to the Portland schools. This is an exciting opportunity for me to do more work within the labor movement and I'm looking forward to it. Because it may be a matter of public knowledge soon. I just wanted to make sure you're all aware and I'd be happy to answer any questions about that arrangement. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Board Member Grant. All right, I'd like to turn it over to Superintendent Botana for your remarks, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thursday is the last day of the term before we enter our winter break. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for your hard work during the fall and wish everyone a restful and restorative winter break and look forward to seeing everyone back on January 3rd. And that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Now I'd like to move to the report of the Secretary. Consideration and action to approve the meeting minutes of December 5th, 2022. Is there a motion? Thank you, Board Member Youssef. Is there a second? Thank you, Board Member Grant. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, I'll move to public comment. Any public comment on the meeting minutes from December 5th, 2022? Double check Zoom. Seeing none, I will close public comment. Any board discussion? Seeing none, by roll call vote, please indicate whether you are in favor of approving the meeting minutes of December 5th, 2022. Mr. Superintendent, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair, Ms. Biliu.
Yes.
Ms. Bondo.
Yes.
Ms. Bryden.
Yes.
Ms. Figdor.
Yes.
Mr. Grant.
Yes.
Dr. Opperman.
Yes.
Ms. Russell Better.
Yes.
Mr. Youssef.
Yes.
Ms. Ellis.
Yes.
Mr. Hemond.
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yes.
And Chair Lentz.
Yes. The motion passes unanimously. The students voting with the majority. We have two sets of notes to or meeting minutes to vote on. So is there consideration and action to approve the meeting minutes of December 6th, 2022? Thank you, Board Member Bryden. Is there a second? Board Member Russell Better. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, I'll move to public comment. Any public comment on the meeting minutes from December 6th, 2022? Okay, I'm going to close public comment. Any board discussion? Seeing none, by roll call vote, please indicate whether you are in favor of approving the meeting minutes of December 6th, 2022. Mr. Superintendent, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair, Ms. Biliu.
Yes.
Ms. Bondo.
Yes.
Ms. Bryden,
Yes.
Ms. Figdor,
Yes.
Mr. Grant,
Yes.
Dr. Opperman,
Yes.
Ms. Russell Better,
Yes.
Mr. Youssef,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis,
Yes.
Mr. Hemond,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
and Chair Lentz.
Yes. The motion passes unanimously with students voting in with the majority. We're going to move on to consent items now. Mr. Superintendent, will you please speak to this item?
Yes, Chair. Per policy KCD, the board is required to formally accept gifts or bequests of durable nature, of substantial value, or of historic or commemorative significance. The contributors are for Talbot Elementary School. Talbot Elementary School received dinner for families in attendance at Homework Diner from Wayside Food from Portland. Ocean Avenue Elementary School received monetary donations for the following organizations to be used for their December to Remember project. Shaw's Northgate Plaza of Portland, Letterpress Books of Portland, Mr. Bagel of Portland, and Monty's Fine Foods of Portland. And Ocean Avenue Elementary School also received handcrafted knit hats for students from Kathy Stevens of Saco. And we'd like to thank all of these generous contributors for their support of the Portland Public Schools.
Thank you. Now we're going to move into our board focus on the update on the status of implementing middle school supports in response to last year's student protests. So I'll turn it over to assistant superintendents. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. Mr. Townsend.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members and public. We appreciate the chance to update you all on the work that's been underway these past few months at our middle schools to continue to grow safe and equitable school communities where all our students, staff, and families have a sense of belonging. For our update this evening, I am excited to be joined by our incredible middle school leaders here this evening. Principal Caitlin LeClaire, Mr. Donaldson, this new assistant principal, Jason Bradeen, Marisa Ayala from Lincoln, and of course, the esteemed Ms. Nalia, my colleague as assistant superintendent. Our goals tonight are to provide a bit of context about this fall and the work as we began coming back out of the spring and the summer, and to share our progress on the implementation of our strategies to impact our communities and the progress monitoring we've been doing on these efforts. We'll wrap up with our areas of focus as we move into our second trimester to continue to build on the work that we've launched over these first few months. The headline for our presentation this evening is that despite significant staffing challenges, to start the year, our leaders and their school teams have made important strides in the implementation of these core strategies, and that has led to improved results in terms of the student and staff experience in our schools. That being said, it is hard to overstate how challenging that has been, and that we are a long ways from where we want to ultimately be for all of our students and staff in these school communities. But we're encouraged by the work that our teams are doing and believe that we're on the path to continue to grow the kind of school communities that we are all proud of. As you may recall, we provided an update in June in regards to the student protests and feedback that had occurred at the middle schools, sharing a variety of data about the student and staff experience. We had committed to these next steps at that time. We were able to move forward with all of these over the course of the summer, including the student engagement work and including having a 3-day retreat with our middle school leaders in July to map out our plan over and prepare for this year. Consulting with national resources, we mapped out a 3-year plan to grow our middle school communities to be the fully restorative, responsive school communities that embody our work. From this retreat in our 3-year plan, we developed a set of strategies and goals for this coming year. This plan is grounded in the theory of action that if we cultivate trauma-sensitive and culturally responsive schools and classrooms through intentional adjustments to our current systems and practices and explicitly teach and cultivate SEL competencies, then students and staff will feel safe, connected, and inspired to learn and be in our community. To monitor our progress over the course of the year, we identified the measures you see in front of us. We will share our initial formative data on these measures later in our presentation. To get more specific, from this retreat, we identified these core strategies to implement for this coming year to achieve our goals. Strengthening relationships through circle work and de-escalation, deepening our school culture through our PBIS, positive behavioral intervention and supports, and increasing student and family voice in our school communities. The first two strategies reflect strategies that we are leveraging system-wide, and the third one is an intentional response to the work at our middle schools and the experience of our students and families over the past year to integrate them more deeply into the body of our work as we move forward. Each of our school leaders will talk a bit about the work that has been underway in their buildings around the implementation of these strategies as we move forward here tonight. Before we jump into the work that's been underway this fall, we wanted to provide a bit of context or a lay of the land, if you will, that our leaders, teachers, and staff were managing to start this year. First, as has been discussed in prior board updates and is well known, we have experienced significant staffing challenges this year. This has been felt acutely in our middle schools, a challenge common to every system and district in the United States. As the slide shows, we started the year with a significant number of educator vacancies. And while we have made significant progress, we are still struggling to ensure we have all the needed supports in place to support each of our students. In addition to these vacancies, all of our middle schools have experienced significant turnover, from the leadership of our schools to the core group of educators serving our students to the support staff necessary to run school effectively. This turnover has meant that we've lost significant institutional knowledge and that each school has had to prioritize the building of their own adult staff community and the regrounding and the aligned mindsets and approaches to supporting students. Additionally, while we allocated significant financial resource to support this work and accelerate the progress of those two key initial strategies I mentioned a moment before, we have also struggled to actualize that support because of ongoing staffing challenges. In June, you approved these proposals to support the culture and climate work in our middle schools and beyond. Unfortunately, we have not been able to fill the roles as was originally intended. We did not have robust pools for either the BCBA or restorative practice coach roles as we had envisioned. And as a result, we have pivoted in our use of some of these resources to getting additional outside support and capacity from outside organizations. We're continuing to strategize with our leaders about how to best use these resources to pivot, to be able to add the needed capacity at our schools, to learn to do the work in new and different ways in service of our students and families. We hope that through the budget process that will unfold, we'll continue to be better positioned to deepen and add in these layers of support to support the teachers, staff, and leaders in our buildings who are carrying monumental work for us. So with that, I'm excited to share and turn over to Mr. Donaldson to talk about our first strategy work. Again, strengthening the relationships in our school communities. Mr. Donaldson.
Thank you, Aaron. I am still Ben, the principal at Moore Middle School. And I want to talk to you a little bit about how we started this work with a commitment to deepening our faculty culture of valuing and supporting each other as colleagues and professionals. What we have learned through this process is that when adults are wounded and hurt, they need support and they need to feel connected to each other to be able to bring their best selves to the work with kids. So what you see in the picture there is coming back to school, our August Institute. That's how we wrapped up 4 days of working together and coming together to have common purpose moving forward. So adults who know each other and value each other are prepared to support students to do their best. So our whole student inequity goal is to do just that, to know and support every kid that we have at Moore. One of the ways we do this is through advisory. That's a structure in the school that puts a small number of students with one adult, and 46 of us, including me, are advisors in our building. So every day we meet with those groups and we're making connections. So Monday morning, we start with a longer lesson where we can talk about issues that exist, big issues in the world, issues in our school, and small issues, things that sometimes are big for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Friday afternoon in advisory, we end with fun to end our weeks with connection and joy. We also do student-led conferences through advisories. So that's that one adult meeting with those 10 families, and the students lead the conference. And then our families have an opportunity to go and speak with other teachers about how things are going. So we're again leveraging that structure of advisory in our community to build deep connections with kids and families. We're also committed to growing our culture of using community building circles. So again, that starts with the adults, because if adults are going to facilitate them, they need to know what it feels like to be part of these. So we run our professional development and we work and set up adults to experience deep sharing and listening to each other and working through problems together. In that way, they can turn around and we can do that with our students when we're doing it the next day or the next week. So in advisory, our Monday lessons, those ones I spoke of, are in circles. So we sit there and we build our capacity to listen to each other outside of any conflict or intense situation, so that when those things happen, we're able to use a familiar structure to be able to listen carefully, understand, and respond to what each other are asking for, and we can resolve conflicts. So that's about listening to others' perspectives, not fully understanding them because they're not our own, but valuing those and then being able to respond to them. So we're building that capacity in each other as adults and in and with students. Finally, and perhaps most concretely, we've committed to de-escalation training. So de-escalation is specifically skill building with adults to interact with and intervene with students in a way that diffuses situations and keeps the small problems small. Middle school kids need to and do mess up a lot. That's how they learn. And we're there to help them keep those small problems small. And if we can intervene earlier, we can help head off what might become something much larger. At Moore, we have a new assistant principal, Farasi Cherry, who we're very excited to be working with and to have leading in our school. So he is helping lead that professional development on de-escalation training. So we have a district resource that we have to use, and Farasi is helping us take that in bite-sized chunks and continue to come back to it as a group of adults. So over time in the year, we're getting better and better at this, not through a one-time, hey, we did it and it's over and now we're great, but in a consistent way that we know that all of us need to get better and better over time. So that's a bit of what we're doing around relationship development at Moore, and the process and progress is ongoing. Next, we have Principal Ayala from Lincoln Middle School. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Marisa Ayala, principal at Lincoln Middle School, and I'll be talking about our second strategy, which is multi-tiered systems of support. I also want to acknowledge that we just started this work and it's been only about 4 months of school, and we've had a lot of progress in our middle schools. So part of our multi-tiered systems of support includes a PBIS strategy. So this strategy ensures that every middle school has mechanism to celebrate students and their positive behaviors. This also includes having a PBIS team at every single middle school that meets on a weekly basis to review student data and to review just the activities and the strategies within our unique schools. The implementation, what does that look like? That looks like alignment and connection between these positive behaviors in our house, which are our habits of work and learning. We also are focusing on positive recognition and moving from that extrinsic to the intrinsic motivation in our students. So for example, at Lincoln, we currently have a system where our kids earn tickets and they can cash them in at the end of every week, and they earn rewards and prizes around as long as they're engaging in these positive behaviors. The really neat thing about this strategy is that it positions our adults to have positive interactions with our students every time. So as soon as one of our adults sees and notices one of our students engaging in positive behavior, they name it and they hand a ticket to the students. The last item on our PBIS strategy is our evaluation of our PBIS system. So that includes a tiered fidelity inventory, which we will be talking a little bit more about later on, that has been completed at every middle school. And this inventory and the evaluation will be used with our PBIS teams to ensure that we're progressing in our PBIS strategy. Our second part of our MTSS, or multi-tiered systems of support plan, includes RTI and student support teams. So we have implemented literacy courses in every middle school that focuses on students who have literacy needs, and teachers use specialized curriculum and quality high intervention materials such as Lexia across all middle schools. Also, we have student supports teams that utilize Swiss data. Swiss is a platform that we utilize to collect student behavior data and to also be able to analyze trends across our schools. This also includes increasing our interventions and increasing our student behavior plans for kids that need them the most. And then lastly, our response to interventions. So we have HOWs, which are habits of work and learning. And these are learning targets that every teacher implements in our classes on a day-to-day basis. Kids are scored from 1 to 4, and they receive clear feedback on their engagement around these habits of work and learning. At Lincoln in particular, we also designed a progressive discipline protocol. So this includes tiered responses to behavior with a focus on restorative practices in lieu of or embedded within the disciplinary action that we take. So this includes acknowledgement and reminders to students about engaging in positive behaviors. It includes creating opportunities for adults to engage in restorative conversations with our student, thus building the relationships with them. It includes the integration of lessons for targeted behaviors that are unique to our schools. And it includes re-entry meetings with supportive plans for our students that include family input as well. Thank you very much. Now I will invite my colleague, Caitlin, principal at King, over.
Thank you, Caitlin LeClaire, principal at King. In addition to everything that my two favorite middle school principals, Dawn and Marisa, have shared, this one feels also very in response to what we learned from our students last spring. So in addition to everything that they have highlighted, we're being very intentional across our middle schools about creating increased opportunities for student leadership, for elevating student voices, which is what we heard loud and clear last spring, and for also expanding parent involvement. And as they both have shared, these are all things that have started and are very much in the works for us. So to increase that sense of belonging that Erin spoke about in the beginning, and to really build a sense of personal agency for our students, we've prioritized experiences across the schools that provide opportunities, hopefully, for students to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel that sense of belonging that we all know is so critical, and that they're connected to their community, not just recipients of what's happening day to day in our school. So some of the things that are happening that are exciting, especially for me personally, I can say the post-pandemic, not really, but so many things were void in what we were able to provide our students and what students were able to experience. And so to reimagine that and to bring some of those elements and experiences back into our school, albeit slowly, has been really exciting and energizing. So with the support of student leaders, we specifically at King, but I know it's similar across schools, have been able to start clubs again and have after school activities led by our staff. So, a debate club, an art club, a cooking club, craft club, and an LGBTQ club, and more to come. And for us, we're launching the start of a Black Student Union beginning this week, which is also very exciting. We also have after-school programs that have been spoken about earlier this evening, like Make It Happen, which is a really impactful and powerful program. And we have a 21st century after-school program that's run through the Boys and Girls Club. So kids are getting opportunities to engage in getting academic help, but also building gardens at King, working with local artists, and having fun. Also, as already mentioned a little bit before, our partnerships with Seeds of Peace and Ripple Effect have increased and reinforced our efforts to build community and relationships with students, and also have brought joy and fun back into the school experience. A recent survey, and I think Malia is going to speak a little bit more to this, given across the schools, asked our students to provide feedback on their lived experiences. So really tapping into elevating student voices. And those results are going to be highlighted for you. But at King, one of the things that we did was analyzed all of those results with our staff and discussed the things that we're doing that positively impact those results, and identifying places and areas where we need growth. So we're also going to be bringing those results to our students through CREW, which is like our advisory structure that Ben spoke to, and are committed to continuing to ask students to illuminate for us where they're feeling success and what's going well and where we need to improve. And lastly, in October, I believe across the 3 middle schools, we all hosted what's called a shared space cafe, and invited parents to come in and participate in open and translated conversations with us that were focused on important questions related to how schools can support families and the relationship that schools have with families, and also the role that families can play in supporting schools. And this was a real initial step in strengthening our relationship between school and families, especially as families have had to stay out of and away from the public space of schools now for the past couple of years. It was very informative and will be replicated across the 3 middle schools again in the spring. And as my colleagues have shared, we've remained committed to this work. We are energized by our initial outcomes and also the knowledge of what we need to continue to deepen and grow. So thank you. And the one and only Malia, because we're all giving introductions.
Caitlin. Good evening, everyone. Malia Nally, Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning. So thank you to all our school leaders for providing us with a glimpse into the deep work that is happening across all three schools. Thanks to the incredible dedication and hard work of the educators in our middle schools. I want to also just say I'm especially grateful as a mom of an 8th grader in our Lincoln Middle School. I'm now going to provide a brief update of how we're monitoring progress across the middle schools. First, for context, during our summer planning, we agreed that all three schools would conduct pulse check surveys with students and staff in the fall, winter, and spring in order to gauge if we're making progress so that we can identify any course corrections needed and or so that we can celebrate the wins as we go to nurture a sense of collective efficacy. All three schools agreed to use a common set of questions for both surveys so that we'd have similar data to reflect on and to collaborate around. These questions were pulled from our annual student survey and our staff TNTP survey in the learning environment domain. They were chosen because they serve as good proxies for assessing the progress on the specific strategies that all three schools are committed to and that were described by the principals and Aaron. In addition to the pulse check surveys, we've been monitoring in and out of school suspension and have been reviewing this data monthly during our whole student collaboration meeting with APs, as well as during the principal meetings we hold monthly. While this data is intended to be used as formative information to support administrators and educators with the ongoing implementation of the work, we wanted to provide a summary of some key data points we're tracking and holding ourselves accountable to so that you have a sense of how things are progressing. First, we had students take a brief survey about their experience in school so far, and Caitlin just mentioned this. We asked them to rate their experience on a 5-point scale in relation to the following questions. I feel safe at school. Teachers treat me with respect. Students are frequently recognized for good behavior. And I know an adult I can talk to if I need help. Across the schools, we've had a strong response rate. We're pleased to see that there's been growth on all of the questions since the last time they took the survey early last spring. The biggest gains we've seen so far are around students reporting they feel safe at school and they're being recognized. On average, across the three schools, the safety question went from a baseline of 67% agree, strongly agree, to 78% strongly agree. Being recognized went from 51% last spring to 68%. And all three schools saw gains on these questions. We saw solid growth on the question pertaining to students having an adult they can talk to, where 70% of students strongly agreed last spring, and now 78% agree this year. Finally, our pulse check revealed more of a steady state on the question about teachers treating students with respect, though all schools made some gains, and we went from 82 to 84 across on average. I also want to name that we do not have this data disaggregated as we do for formal surveys. We did this pulse check informally using Google Forms, and so the data is not tied to student IDs. And we did consider and contemplate having students self-identify, but when we've done that, it hasn't produced reliable data. But our annual progress tool will do that. So when we kind of look at our data at the end of the year, we'll be able to disaggregate it. In terms of the staff pulse check, we pull questions from the TNTP staff survey we administer each spring. This survey is organized into several domains that get at different aspects of school, such as instructional planning and delivery, family engagement, and so on. We honed in on several questions from the learning environment domain. Specifically, we asked staff to respond also on a 5-point scale to the following questions. Across school, there are consistent expectations and consequences for student behavior. Leaders provide support to maintain positive behavior, and staff at my school immediately address misbehavior in shared school spaces like hallways and lunchroom. We see solid growth across all schools and questions from the staff pulse check as well. Specifically, we see across the board growth on the sense that the schools are addressing behavior in shared spaces, with a jump from 35% agree, strongly agree to 58% on average across the three schools. There appear to be more variation by school as it relates to the presence of clear and consistent expectations, where 2 of the schools have seen growth and 1 lost a little ground, though that school still has an overall higher agree, strongly agree rate than another. Finally, we had some confusion and inconsistent data collection on the question about how leaders are supporting positive behavior. But this doesn't represent all 3 schools, but we see growth with the 2 schools that asked that question, going from 39 to 50%. Agree, strongly agree. Importantly, while we're hopeful about some of the glimmers of growth we see in the formative data, we want to acknowledge that ongoing qualitative feedback from staff indicates that this year has been very challenging, and in particular for schools that have had significant staffing holes this fall. We're excited about the gains, but in no way want to suggest that things are still not very challenging for everyone. There is much work to be done to ensure students' experiences are consistently nurturing academically and emotionally, as well as much work to do to ensure our educators feel set up for success every day. The final data point we want to illuminate is the out-of-school and in-school suspension data. The main headline here is that we see fewer suspensions by this point in the year as compared to previous years. The data on the slide represents the same period of time, August to November, for the past 3 years. While we're pleased with the reduction in suspensions overall, we continue to see disproportionate use of suspensions when we do desegregate the data, and specifically a higher percentage of BIPOC students who are suspended in proportion to the total population of students. The majority of suspensions are for fighting or threatening behavior. During our previous AP meeting, we used the 5 Whys protocol to unearth the root cause of the fighting issue, and we ultimately got to there's issues happening outside of school that are being brought into school, often tied to social media, and the need to explicitly teach students skills for managing conflict in relationships. A sense that some of these skills are typical for this stage of development, and that some of the needs seem bigger than in the past, with the sense that the impact of the pandemic is likely a cause. As for next steps, first and foremost, we remain obsessed with fully staffing our schools and filling the remaining open ed tech positions. Right now, we're seeing some progress with our centralized staffing fairs monthly on Fridays, and with a very targeted recruitment and hiring focus that we've been able to do by redeploying some of the academic team to this task. Second, we believe we've identified the right strategies, and so the focus is on deepening and strengthening the implementation of these strategies. A few things to highlight as next steps across all 3 schools include as Marisa mentioned, each school has completed a culturally responsive TFI, Tiered Fidelity Inventory Assessment, with Sarah Wilkinson, who's a PBIS coach and assistant professor from USM, in order to diagnose what is and is not in place in their tiered systems of support, in order to then drive a school-specific action plan. Each school's PBIS team will be focusing on the implementation of these targeted plans. Schools will continue working on modeling and using community building circles and offering professional development around the foundations of restorative practice. This includes the curriculum work underway to ensure that we have a culturally responsive pedagogy, which is a key foundational enabler of restorative practices. An example is that we've rolled out Facing History and Ourselves as a curricular tool for the social studies teachers in each of the middle schools, and all will be implementing a unit this year. All 3 schools will continue to support and strengthen the student groups that Caitlin highlighted, including specific experiences for students that are supported by partners such as Ripple Effect and others. We are deepening our focus on the SEL curriculum tools that teachers have access to for the advisory and pride time. The district SEL vertical team was kicked off this month, and we'll be looking at our holistic progression of SEL learning pre-K through 12. And so we'll have we do have middle school representatives on this team, while simultaneously working to accelerate making sure we have a strong progression of learning and tools for teachers in our middle schools this year. In addition, we are launching the Alternatives to Suspension work group in January with the support and expert guidance of Jose Bu from Great School Partnerships. This team will better define our long-term goals around suspensions and the strategies needed to help us realize those goals. Hopefully, this update gives you a sense of the deep work that is happening in all of our middle schools. I am incredibly proud and humbled to be on this team who's leading in a humble and compassionate and just all-in way for our students and their families and our community. As this is intended to be a brief progress update, and not an overall report out, which of course we'll do at the end of the year, we'll definitely open it up to some questions, but I just want to note that this is all a work in progress. And so this is just a glimpse into the work that is underway. Thank you.
Thank you. Are any questions from the board and student reps also, please? Yeah, board member Bryden.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for all of that information. Really appreciate all the hard work. And I want to also just sort of at the outset say, I could talk about this for hours, and my questions are coming from a place of curiosity, not challenge. So I have three hopefully quick questions. The first one is on the TNTP staff survey results. Gains are good. Awesome. I'm wondering if you have a sense of, and if you don't have a sense right now, it's okay. I'm curious about what the goal scores would be for agree and strongly agree.
All the data, but
yeah, I mean, I can say, so schools have set goals. I don't know why I did that. I'm not reading anything. I'm joking, so I'm gonna have my glasses on. All the schools in their school success plans set specific goals. So we set broad goals as a district, and then they each look at essentially their kind of baseline data to set specific targets. So I don't have where we are in terms of summing that up, but that's how we approach that. And we could surely.
I mean, you're never going to get 99% agree.
Yeah.
Which one are we? Student environment?
The learning domain.
Okay. Hang on a second.
Well, that wouldn't, or are you looking up the goal?
I'm looking at what would be the benchmark for national average.
Oh, I see.
Does that make sense to do that? No.
You could look at that or the top quartile, but I think each school has individualized.
Yeah, no, I'm just looking at the aggregate for that, for learning environment.
Yeah.
Two more quick questions, if that's all right. Here. Okay.
Yes.
So let's see, on slide, I think it was slide 8, in terms of the conversation about having, used as much ESSER funds as possible, but having some staffing challenges. Could I get just a couple of sentences explaining what the attuned contract is?
I'll say briefly and then let Principal Ayala speak to how that's been rolling out. So that's around school culture, coaching and support, both at a leadership level as well as at direct teacher level. So they've done, this is where I can turn it over to you, Marisa. They've done walkthroughs at Lincoln and then did an initial staff PD there. So it's, again, in service of the same goals, but just leveraging some outside consultants and be able to support that.
Thank you. And then actually my third question is for Principal Ayala. I heard you say moving from extrinsic to intrinsic motivation, which then I'm hoping that you could just maybe in a couple of sentences talk a little bit more about the intrinsic part, because I heard the prizes and I was like, so can you talk just a little bit about how we're doing intrinsic motivation stuff at Lincoln? That'd be super.
Everyone here understands the context of the spring, right? Yeah. And I think at the root of it all is that we need to reestablish trust with our students. And it's going to take us doing this extrinsically at first, because it does position our adults to have those positive interactions with kids. And I believe that with our students, they can no longer be just okay with words, right? They need to see our action as adults. And I really do believe that in this action, we will start internalizing, and our students will start to see that we are there for them. And so I don't anticipate seeing, good changes didn't happen overnight. I do believe that we will see change, and we have seen change at least at Lincoln's data point. We grew from like 42% last year to like 81 to this year of students feeling like we are acknowledging their positive behaviors.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm going to call in Board Member Bondo, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Right. Thank you. I have a couple of questions. Thank you for the presentation. And My first question is on how many students so far were participate to the program during summer?
Which program and specifically do you mean the summer? We could go back and
you have the seed piece and also the one I mentioned here, like the leveraging affinity group. And I just want to see students were clusters. So we brought, because I see the result of the survey. So I just want to make sure how many students we had and how many were able to respond to those surveys.
Right. Yeah. In the seeds piece.
So summer participation with Seeds Apiece was separate from the student survey this fall.
Okay.
So summer participation Seeds Apiece, I think, ranged across our schools from single digits, like 5 or 6 kids, to maybe 15 from one school. So I think it was a total of somewhere around between 30 and 40 students participated this summer in those sessions. Sorry, Mickey, I don't know where to look. I'm looking at you on the screen, but I don't know if
Really?
I'm actually looking at you. But,
I see you.
Okay, great. I see you, which is nice.
Right.
And then this fall, we surveyed the students in the fall, and our response rate was really high. I mean, we had almost 400 kids responding to that student survey out of almost 500 total. So those are really representative data that we collected from kids this fall, and we'll collect again in February, so that we'll get another sense of how kids are feeling. And then in May, we'll do the student survey. And that's the one Malia said that we can disaggregate by student groups. So the fall, the winter, and the spring. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have I look at some of those aspects of those are the clarification questions, like your school support consultation. Those are the consultation for student 101, or was really those consultation is about?
Student support teams.
Are you asking about the student support teams?
Yes.
Okay, so we have student support teams at every school. The idea is to gather a group of educators and adults in a school building that can come together to support students based on their needs, right? So at Lincoln, for example, our student support team will come together to design plans of support for our kids. Right now in our team, we have our counselors, our social worker, we have our assistant principal, Blake Castle, who's in charge of climate and culture at Lincoln, and has a lot of background around special education and behavior. So that's what we mean about student support teams, is ensuring that we can see student case by case and be able to differentiate our response to their behavior.
Okay, so everything is around the trauma informed as well?
Say that one more time.
So that means the consultation, when I mentioned about, so everything is going to be training around the trauma informed?
Yes.
For behavior. Okay, thank you. Yeah. For 2 more questions. And I saw some of the strategies. You have the de-escalating training. So I just wondered to know what kind of training topics is about just de-escalation of the issue in the general aspects of that definition, or that training is going more deeper for some issues, real situation, topics, or themes?
Okay. So the individual trainings are explicit and very focused. So an example is last week our faculty talked about different ways to listen to people. And it's a simple concept. We think about, we're listening for understanding. But what we try to break that into is an article that was 10 or 12 different ways to listen. And that as educators, we might use different ways to listen in different situations. So listening for understanding, listening for pain to understand what someone else is experiencing, listening for empathy. So just engaging people and talking about some of the best work that we do as educators is really to listen to kids, not to say the right thing, but to listen and take in what they're sharing. And that as faculty, to be able to talk about that and the nuances of how we listen to kids and what that tells us about what they need, is just a different way to think about it. A lot of our training sometimes is like what to say in the right moment. So this was a different take on it. Like, how do we really listen to kids and know what they're telling us and communicating with us? So that's just one example.
Okay, thank you, Ben.
You're welcome.
And my last question is on the next steps. I think that's Maria. You mentioned about the alternative next step for suspension. The suspension, the disproportional suspension around BIPOC students is not a new issue. It's something we've been in the district for years. So the next step for the suspension work group strategies, so those going to be limited just for the middle school right now. So we're building some goals. Those can share.
Oh,
yes. Go ahead.
Sorry, I thought you were done. There was like a little skip. So I think you're asking about is the alternatives to suspension work group, and is that going to be primarily focused on middle schools? Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. So it's actually going to be a secondary focus, or so middle and high school together. We're going to have a few elementary representatives on the team to tie in the thread across the whole, elementary and middle school and high school. But our bigger issues are at the secondary level, and so we're going to have administrators and educators sit on the team in addition to community partners. We've talked to Maine Inside Out, Portland Empowered, partners like that. And so the goal would be to come up with a strategy. So they're going to start meeting a couple times a month for the first 2 months to create some momentum, and then about monthly. And our hope is that we can do a 2-day retreat in the summer. And then coming out of that work group, there will be some ESSER funds that are tied into our mental and behavioral health supports that will help us enact some of the recommendations that this group will work on throughout these 6 months. And Jose, I can share his bio with you all as a follow-up if you're interested, but we're really excited. He's in Holyoke, and his deep kind of expertise is around restorative practices. He's also actually supporting Westbrook schools right now.
Okay. So that means, please, Mary, just stay there. That's a sub question when you just on by going with those goals, those are something, because I'm still getting a little frustrated with the suspension all the time. We've been talking the same thing. So I don't see anything moving forward, but we can still keep on working and trying different strategies. So I just want to understand, do we have any ways to build some benchmark to measure those alternatives?
Yeah, and you can chime in, Erin. One thing I would say is we have seen reduction in suspension. And so across all groups, including BIPOC students. So as you saw, we were looking at the past 3 years of data, and we've seen a significant reduction. One of the things that comes up, and then Erin definitely can speak to the goal piece, but is the concept of the in-school suspension and the need for a timeout, like a break from the community. And how do we think about that? Like, when is that perceived as punitive versus supportive? So there's some deep conversations the team is trying to have. And then how do we categorize that? And so I think there's a lot of curiosity and energy around that distinction between I'm punishing you and putting you out of the community versus I'm supporting you to have a break where you can go through a restorative process to re-enter the community. And so I think that will be a huge part of the dialogue. I know you're looking for targets, so I'll let Erin speak to that. But I just, again, want to remind you, we have seen actually significant decrease. And so we see that as positive progress, though we still see that disproportionality, which I hear you concerned about, and we share that concern.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Just two thoughts briefly to that. The reduction we continue to see in kind of the discretionary reasons as we've improved our data collection, the categories of other continue to kind of be minimized. So, what I would say generally is that suspensions continue to be used for just most extreme behaviors, as opposed to a more generalized response to issues of defiance and disruption more broadly, right? So I think that's significant progress. And one, I'd like to work towards and have kind of initiated us to move away from just tracking pure volume and numbers of suspension to be understanding a bit more in terms of rate, in terms of what is our suspension rate, just as we think about our absence data. And when we start to calculate it that way, obviously, as the board is familiar, we have some significant data gaps and capacity right now. But as we build back in there, being able to evaluate it that way, because I think as we evaluate our suspension rate, compared across middle schools, across we'll see across the state, Maine doesn't calculate it this way, but is commonly calculated, that it'll give us a better proxy to be able to evaluate progress on that and where we stand kind of holistically. Obviously, the disproportionality issue and why we dug into the 5 whys to start to really get underneath what are the core issues, and the alternatives to suspension will be an opportunity. Will be an opportunity for us to think about the strategies and how those are articulated, our responses are articulated. So.
All right. Thank you. I'm done, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Bondo. We're going to go to Board Member Abilio and then Opperman.
Thank you, Board Member Lenz or Chair. I'm going to take this time to speak my mind about how I've been feeling throughout this process, and as well as the presentation that is before us. I wrote something that I really would like for you all to give me the space to say. And so I'm going to start. It is disheartening to see staff and teachers attach equity to the view and leadership of one person. I am glad that people are aware of what prioritizing equity could mean for our schools and, most importantly, our students. But in that grain, we all have to confront our biases and lack of representation in this room every day. Equity has become a generic word that folks are using to further their version of what this word represents. But if you are not from those demographics that are mostly impacted by the lack of equity, can you know what a good equitable solution is? Or even one that addresses all the issues that are impacted by these demographics? I am, and proudly, a radical community organizer that has been organizing for the liberation of Black and Brown bodies in our communities for most of the time that I've existed in this community. I've been bullied and silenced by the structures created to not let young Black kids create change in this district. Structures created to silence kids who are using their school time to speak up against constant oppression and racism. I know something about that oppression and what it looks like because I've been in that position before. What I see is folks taking up space for those who should be encouraged to take up these spaces for themselves. Where are the disenfranchised Black and Brown students that protest leadership of their school, the leadership of their school leaders and their superintendent? Were those leaders evaluated on those, on how these students express their experience with their lack of leadership? These students talk to me and tell me the horrors they experience every day. These students are my nieces, nephews, cousins, and siblings. If the school district prioritizes those demographics, where are they? Why are low-income kids from Riverton, KP, Front Street, and Monjoy Hill not prioritized in the school system? Or do Black and Brown low-income kids not matter? In my time in this space, I've never seen folks from this demographic with the knowledge of equity that you all speak of in this space. They are not seen, heard, or given the space to be prioritized. It is great that privileged folks have the opportunity to speak about their version of equity that has been prioritized by their leaders and those who they feel represent this demographic. But what about those whose radical equity needs are never seen? Band-aid solutions to systematic racism and oppression always end up sacrificing the needs of those mostly impacted by these systems. Where is the anti-racism work? Where are the community conversations about the N-word and the white kids who say those words as a form of harm? Where are the professional accountability structures needed for racist teachers who are harming students? Where's the real accountability about administrative members who ignore the grievances of these kids? Why is the emphasis on programming for students and not teachers? Students are constantly asked to come to the table and teach their racist teachers about their experiences and the programs they need to uproot these racist behaviors. Where's the support for this? These students are very aware of their experiences and know what they are going through. From the work I have been involved in and the Band-Aid solutions that I have been presented, I don't believe that the school system can accurately support Black and Brown students, especially those who protested and don't want to be complacent to the culture of oppression at the school system. I do not think the school system has the capacity to address its racist structures and its lack of support for Black and Brown kids, especially when it hasn't even defined the difference between biases and explicit biases in its hiring practices. I am that Black child, and I know that our students deserve more than this. And honestly, we should be ashamed to present something like this when kids use their time to protest their leadership. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you, Board Member Bielu.
Hello, can you hear me well?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, did I interrupt?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I appreciate your comments, Member Bielu. To address the presentation, I'm pleased at a number of things that I think go to the route of alleviating some of the stresses that cause students to feel inadequate or suppressed. And RTI, I think, is one of those, in that if you are going to acting out can also be related to the fact that you don't feel comfortable in what you're doing, and that can be things, environment, but it also can be feeling of understanding of what you're supposed to be doing in an academic sense as well. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that you're looking at how to have teachers listen to students, because that is where they will hear the students. If they know how to listen, they will hear the students in what would Member Bielu was bringing up. A concern I have on this overall is not the programming that you're thinking of and that all the PD that you're doing, but I hope you are looking at taking something off the plate of the teachers who need to really spend time on this content of learning themselves and becoming transformed by their understanding. And if it's one extra thing on, then it is going to be, I've not ignored, but wished to go away. And I would hope that you would consider that in your process. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Opperman. I have a couple of questions, but I think I'll just follow up later on those. Any other questions from the board? No. Thank you all for I
just want to thank the team. I understand the fact that this is work that is just in its infancy, but I am very proud of the way that this group of leaders has taken on this challenge. I think that it would have been really easy for us as an institution to say that there was, that these are kids and kids do these things. And instead, this group has embraced the challenge that came from the protests of the students. I don't think anybody presenting today or, in our schools believes that we've got this and have a complete handle on it, but we are absolutely committed and focused on addressing what we heard from our students, and we'll continue to listen to them, and we'll continue to work towards that. I'm just incredibly proud of this team, and thank you guys for everything that you do every day. Thank you for the leadership that you provide to your staff. Thank your staff for their embracing these challenges and taking them on. And, you know, to Aaron and Malia, thank you for organizing this work and for leading this work with the passion that you have brought to this work. Thank you to everybody here.
Yeah, I echo those thanks for many of the same reasons, and also just understand that we can't put what's happening in our district into a presentation. And as Nylet said, there's so much pain and anger and frustration and hardness and complexity in this work. And I am very proud to be in the same room with people trying to hold all of those things at the same time. So thank you. We're going to take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at 8:40, please. We're going to move into new business. First up, we have a first read. We have two first reads of a couple policies. Our first read of policy JFCK, or student use of cellular telephones. Mr. Superintendent, would you like to speak to this item?
It's a first read.
That's a first read, so we don't speak.
We don't speak to it.
Okay.
And we have a workshop on it
Right at
coming
the
up
end.
afterwards. So we don't
Okay.
speak to it on first read. We will do the
Great.
workshop.
Great. And then we're also doing a first read of a policy IMB, which is teaching controversial or sensitive issues. As the superintendent stated, we'll have a workshop on both of these policies that have moved through the policy and curriculum committee. Moving on to personnel, consideration and action to approve personnel items listed, election of teacher candidates. Yeah, Chris, hello, welcome.
Thank you so much. Still going to use my thing so I remember my words, so I apologize.
No, please.
So tonight you're being asked to approve the superintendent's recommendations for 4 educator hires. There's 2 different groups. The first one will be 3 one-year only educators. And then the other group is we have 1 regular educator position.
Thank you,
so
Chris. Is there a motion to approve these personnel items listed? Thank you, Board Member Russell Better. Is there a second? Thank you, Board Member Bryden. Any questions on the motion? There are no public comments on personnel items by roll call vote. Well, Mr. Superintendent is, yes, I can call the roll, but I don't have the roll in front of me. Mr. Superintendent, could you please come call the roll on personnel issues? Yeah, thank you. It's all right. There's a lot of things happening. We're almost to the end.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. We're voting on the personnel issues.
Yes. Miss Biliu,
Yes.
Miss Bondo,
Yes.
Miss Bryden,
Yes.
Miss Figdor, Mr. Grant,
Yes.
Dr. Opperman,
Yes.
Ms. Russell Better,
Yes.
Mr. Youssef,
Yes.
Miss Ellis,
Yes.
Mr. Hemond,
Yes.
and Chair Lentz.
Yes. The board passes with Emily Figdor, sorry, Board Member Figdor not voting, and the students.
Voted, she gave me a thumbs
Oh, I
up, but she
apologize.
came
I missed
back.
it. Okay, so the motion passes unanimously with the students voting in with the majority.
And I'm sorry, but I did not get who moved and seconded.
Russell Better moved, Bryden seconded.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn the business meeting? Thank you, Board Member Bryden. Is there a second? Thank you, Board Member Grant. All those in favor? Okay, we are adjourned at 8:43, December 20th, 2022.